A group of muscular young men insulted a former war veteran, unaware that it would become the most unforgettable lesson of their lives. A group of young men entered the diner, wearing sleeveless gym shirts, covered in tattoos. They carried with them an energy that was loud, disrespectful, and disruptive. They scanned the room, then locked eyes on the corner, where an old man dressed in a faded military jacket sat silently eating a late lunch. One of his legs was a prosthetic, and his right hand trembled slightly as he held a spoon. No one in the diner paid him any attention, as if he were part of the furniture. Young man one mockingly, "Hey, old man, get up. This is our spot. You're killing the vibe." The whole group burst into laughter. Narrator. The old man didn't respond. He didn't look up. He didn't speak. He simply bowed his head and slowly reached for his crutch. His frame was thin, shaky, but not a word of complaint escaped him. The entire diner fell silent. No one spoke up, not the staff, not the customers. Every eye looked away. In the far left corner of the diner, where afternoon sunlight streamed through a dusty window, a middle-aged man was quietly sipping his coffee. He didn't speak to anyone, didn't look at anyone. His worn black leather jacket hugged a compact, sturdy frame. His salt and pepper hair was neatly combed, his sun-worn face calm, like someone who had weathered many storms and emerged steady. When the mocking laughter and insults rang out from the corner booth, he didn't react immediately. He simply set his cup down, slowly, then stood up, not with haste or drama, but with the silent purpose of someone trained by instinct. His eyes passed over the young men like a cold wind across dry grass, not strong enough to shake trees, but just enough to send a chill. He didn't walk toward them. He walked straight to the old soldier. The veteran's hand was trembling as he reached for his crutch. His jacket was worn, and the old unit patch had faded nearly into nothing. Once a symbol of pride, now a forgotten past. The man bent gently, took the old soldier's arm, the other hand steadying his back. Not a single word was spoken. Every movement was soft and deliberate, like someone lifting a fallen monument with quiet reverence. He placed the crutch carefully into the old man's hand, adjusted the angle, making sure the man could stand firmly if needed. A breath passed. Young man two mocking, trying to sound tough. "What's this? Are you his bodyguard? Or are you two some washed-up action movie duo?" There was no response. The man simply stood, back straight, shoulders squared, eyes fixed forward. Slowly he turned his head, facing the young men for the first time. No words, just a look. His eyes didn't carry anger. They were deep, still, and heavy, like a vast ocean on the verge of a storm. Not threatening, but unmistakably commanding. They weren't a warning, they were a reminder. The boys started blinking. One scratched his head, another tried to force a grin, but it came out twisted. Young man three, trying to make a joke. Well, what's this? The League of Broken Toys?" A single dry chuckle escaped, but no one joined in. The diner seemed to freeze in that moment. The man took a slow, deep breath. He didn't speak. He reached inside his jacket, slowly, deliberately, as if every motion had been calculated beforehand. He pulled out a simple, worn, black leather wallet, but one that had clearly been treated with care, like something sacred. He opened it calmly, just enough for the light to catch the surface of a rigid black ID card with silver trim. "Colonel, United States Marine Corps." His eyes moved across each face in the group. No expression, no smile, no frown, but radiating an air that made every joke die in their throats. Narrator. In those eyes was the weight of experience, of someone who had stood in the trenches, lost close friends, screamed in hopelessness, and gone silent in sorrow. They were not the eyes of a man who needed to be heard. They were the eyes that made an entire room fall silent. Young man one. We were just messing around." Still, the man said nothing. He simply raised one eyebrow, a subtle gesture but one that hit like a gavel on a courtroom bench. Another boy lowered his head, muttered a curse under his breath, voice trembling. One scanned the room, hoping for support, but everyone had turned away. One pretended to check his phone. Another took a quick swig from his energy drink. The group began backing toward the exit. No farewells, no apologies, not even a backward glance. No one in the diner stopped them. No one needed to. They were no longer worth stopping. They hadn't just been chased out of a restaurant. They had been cast out from a moment of honor they didn't deserve to witness. The man turned back to the old soldier. He was still sitting there, eyes cast down at the floor, as if he couldn't quite believe what had just happened. The man gently placed a hand on his shoulder, gave a subtle nod, as if to say, "We still stand together." Narrator: no shouting, no raised fists. Honor doesn't demand to be seen. It only needs to be present, and everything trivial will quietly bow before it. The group of young men stood frozen near the door. The confidence, the sarcasm they once had, all of it had vanished. What remained was confusion and unease, like children caught defacing something sacred. One of them, the tallest, the one who had joked about the League of Broken Toys, tried to cling to the last shred of pride. He smirked, but his eyes had lost all edge. "Come on, man. It was just a joke. No need to get all serious." The man, still silent, 6 read. No frown, no reaction, just a steady gaze, not meant to intimidate, but to force self-reflection. One "come on" no, as if pierced by it. As if, in that moment, he finally saw himself, not as someone powerful, but as a child. Small, empty, and unworthy. The smallest of the group mumbled, "Let's just go." Another boy glanced at the old veteran still seated, then quickly turned away, as if afraid to meet that sorrowful gaze. None of them paid. None of them apologized. They slipped out quietly, no longer stomping like they did before, just sneaking away with the defeated steps of those who had lost a piece of themselves. Wide shot of the diner. No one stopped them. No one needed to. Not to see the silence in the diner was no longer filled with fear. Potentials. It was peace. Like the calm that follows a violent storm, when people just stare at the water, settling again. The diner slowly returned to life. An elderly woman sitting near the window gave a quiet nod. A little boy eating with his mother leaned in and whispered, "Mom, was that man a hero?" The diner returned to stillness, but it was a very different kind of silence now. Not the silence of fear or apathy. Now, but the silence of understanding, of respect, and of awakening. The old soldier sat quietly, eyes fixed on the business card left in front of him, as if it were something sacred. His hands trembled, not out of weakness, but because his heart hadn't been touched by that kind of pure respect in so long. The waitress approached, her voice tight with emotion. I'm sorry I didn't do anything when they insulted you. I should have." The old man shook his head and gave a faint smile. His first smile since the story began. Not bitter, not forced, but a smile that carried light. "Old soldier," softly, "no one needs to apologize. I'm used to it. But today," he paused. His eyes drifted toward the man in the leather jacket, now back at his table, sipping coffee as if nothing had happened. It was as though the old man still couldn't believe any of it was real. Narrator, deep, slow, voice, how many times has he been treated as invisible? How many eyes have turned away? How many doors have closed since he no longer wore the uniform, no longer young, no longer seen as useful by society? But today, no one needed him to prove anything. Just his presence was enough to make another man stand, and through silent action, he was given back something he had long lost: honor. A small, silver-gray business card lay quietly on the table, silent, like a promise. For when you need someone who understands. The veteran, whispering, he truly understands. He didn't need to ask my name, didn't need to know where I've been or what I fought for. He just looked at me, and he knew. The waitress, eyes red, handed him a napkin. Another customer, a middle-aged man with a humble appearance, walked over and gently placed a hand on the veteran's shoulder. The man, sincerely, "I wasn't a soldier, but my father was, and when I look at you, I see him." Then he nodded and quietly returned to his seat. No speeches, just a look of recognition, man to man. The man in the leather jacket finished his coffee. Before standing, he glanced once more toward the veteran, who now sat a little straighter. He gave a faint nod, as if confirming something to himself. The veteran called out, voice trembling but steady. "Sir, Colonel?" The man turned, a soft smile crossing his face, not polite but warm, the kind shared by men who had seen the same blood-stained skies. The veteran, hesitant, "Thank you, not just for what you did, but for reminding me that I'm still a soldier." The man replied, low and slow, "You never stopped being one. We only retreat. We never surrender." Narrator. And with just one sentence, he gave the old man not only his dignity back, but a reason to keep moving forward. The man walked out of the diner. No fanfare, no spotlight. He stepped into the late afternoon sun, leaving behind a room full of grateful eyes. The veteran turned back to his bowl of soup, now cold. But this time, he picked up the spoon with both hands, steady. His hands still trembled, but his heart did not. The sun had begun to dip lower. Outside the small diner, traffic flowed on as usual. But inside, time seemed to slow. The old soldier finished his meal, not rushed, not quietly ashamed as before, but with calm dignity, as a man who once again knew he belonged to this world. Narrator, quiet, deep voice. The world outside can be cold. It can forget those who once stood at the front lines, those who sacrificed so others could live in peace. But sometimes, it only takes one person to remember, one person to stand up at the right moment, to thaw a heart that had nearly frozen shut. Scene shift. The man, the Marine Corps colonel, walked slowly along the street. Sunlight fell across his face, catching the silver in his hair, the world from the Jarius 38. The fire a list in the strength in his posture. No one knew his name. No one asked for a photo. There was no live stream, no applause. But what he left behind would last longer than any viral post. Narrator. Not everyone is a hero, but everyone has a chance to do the right thing. Sometimes, all it takes is not turning away. All it takes is stepping forward, quietly, steadily, and speaking not with words, but with character. Scene. The waitress began to clear the veteran's table. Her eyes were still wet with tears. She picked up the card he'd left behind. The business card the old man had left behind sat on the table. The waitress hesitated for a moment. Then she placed it in an envelope, wrote "Return to owner, hand deliver only," and tucked it into the drawer. Cut 2. A customer exited the diner. He paused, turned back, and slowly removed his cap. He placed a hand over his heart and gave a quiet nod toward the glass window. Foxenplas toward the seat where the old soldier had once sat. No one had asked him to do that. No one saw him do it. But he felt it needed to be done. Narrator Foxenplas. That is the power of honor. It doesn't need noise. It doesn't need justification. It only needs to be recognized, Foxenplas, and preserved. Foxenplas scene. The old veteran stood in front of the mirror inside the diner's small restroom. He combed his hair, straightened the collar of his coat. Then he looked into the mirror, Foxenplas for the first time in a long while. Not to check how he looked, but to see who he was. And he saw it, a soldier, still standing. Narrator Foxenplas. We can never fully know what someone else has been through. We can't look at a worn-out coat, a prosthetic leg, a trembling hand, Foxenplas, and understand what they have given up. But we can choose to look away and pretend we saw nothing, or to stand up, not to look brave, but to do what's right. And sometimes, the bravest silence is the gaze that doesn't flinch. The strongest words are the actions that need no voice. And honor, Foxenplas, never dies. As long as there are those still willing to rise for it. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And when honor walks in, cowards always reveal themselves.